Well, since I just watched Spoon's video about character creation, specifically D&D type character creation, and I don't have anything else to talk about, I might as well do a kinda sorta video response. 'Cause it's not like creating characters for D&D specifically is something new to me. I've been doing it for a very long time. So, he talked about two different types of character creation, and he named them in a way that does not match up with how I imagine them. So, what he called mechanics first, I'll talk about what that means to me in context of a character that I have now, the only active character that I have, Stump. Yes, I named her Stump. We'll get there, because the name and the backstory I decided on all came after what came first. What I call mechanics, the dice rolls. Because we had some very specific kinds of dice rolling for this in particular. We've tried out different things just to see how it would go, experimenting with rolling them all in order so you can't rearrange them and put them where you want. More forgiving or more restrictive, just, to play around with something other than we're all significantly above average, and you have to think and plan a bit more about who you are and the how and the why if you don't have fantastic stats, which does come back around to Stump, because out of everybody, one of us didn't roll any single digit numbers. That was not me. I rolled the worst stats out of everyone, such that when we were in the first session, became mythic characters, we're playing Pathfinder, aka D&D 3.75, because really, 3.75. And we're trying out the mythic thing. So with that came additional stat points, which, and we were granted them cumulatively, well, as a group. We all rolled and they went into a pool, and then it was up to us out of game to decide how to divide them up. And I rolled so much worse than everyone else that I would have needed all of the points that were rolled total. There were 16, I think, and I got 10 of them, just to get my stats up to 10, because I had, and still do have, Dex, Wisdom, no, Dex, Intelligence, Wisdom is actually good, and Charisma, all at significant penalties. Now, her being a dwarf didn't help with the Charisma penalty, but she already had one there. And Charisma is usually my dump stat, so that the talky bits are not my job. But a literal dumb as a stump, hence how she got her name, dwarf, yeah, you couldn't spell eloquent if you tried, so why bother? No. You get to be good at the one thing you do and jack shit else. So even after bonus points, she was still at a minus, I think it's still a -1 dex. She was a -2 intelligence. Her first stat bonus went there. Eventually, she will be less stupid. She still got a little bit of an asterisk next to that literate part. She can read books, but it's work. the people who actually have double-digit intelligences in the party help with that, because that's not her. She has, after the bonus point, she started with a wisdom of 14, which was the only good stat she had, because having a decent con doesn't get you anywhere. The only decent stat she had was wisdom. All right, I can make you a cleric. You don't need to be good at most of the other stuff for that. So most of her bonus points went into making her better at her job rather than fixing her profound failures. I helped her dex and intelligence a little bit. She's still at penalties at both. But I had decided, since all of that stuff kind of came together, I figure, well, this is, there are dwarves here, but this is mostly a human village. So I'm thinking you were found as a child by, well, we call him the abbot. He wasn't actually an abbot, but the dude that ran the local church, on a stump, probably with brain damage, and he wasn't a magical cleric at the time, so wasn't anything he can do about it, because if you have a profound failure in both, it made sense to me in the significant cognitive impairment as well as significant coordination issues, having some actual literal brain damage made sense as a why that might be the case and why she was abandoned as a child. So I named her Stump because she's dumb as one, and I say she was found on one. Because why not? So in that, I started literally with the, okay, well, let me roll the dice and see what I've got to work with, and then go from there, and coming up with anything is what I would call a mechanics first approach, because that is going to be what, oh, God damn it, phone. I don't know that number. Shut up. My numbers, both of my numbers are on do not call lists, and yet, spam, or wrong numbers, or both, are the vast majority of the calls I get. I am not a fan of hearing either of my phones ring, but only one of them wakes me up. Anyway, so I call that mechanics first, because the starting limiting mechanic of what can you actually do and do even remotely competently is what guides all of my future decisions in figuring out who or what, or who and what they are. Concept first is I have an idea of a type of character I would like to try and play. I have trouble with that, and I usually don't have them either because I don't know the circumstances under which we're going to make new characters, or the next time I'm going to be playing a new game. I would rather create one reactively to party need and dice rolls than have I'd really like to play this one, and then how am I going to work that into whatever I get stuck with, or for dice rolls, or whatever scenario we might be in that that really doesn't fit. Because both of those things can happen sometimes at the same time. When it's a little less restricted in the, okay, well, my stats aren't really an issue because I do like rolling those first, regardless, even when I can rearrange them how I want, just because, like, if I'm gonna make a monk, which I haven't, but there's going to be a bunch of stats that need to be decent. If I'm gonna be most other things, I need probably one or two that need to be good and, you know, maybe not suck at certain other things. But figuring out what my options are based on how I've rolled is just the way I have come to do it. But the closest I've come to concept first in the I have an idea for someone, I've probably still rolled, I think I still rolled the stats first for these. But when we're doing character creation, sitting there and figuring out, okay, well, who or what the fuck am I gonna make, I have a hard time with. So, ignoring the order of operations because, hey, I want to make a this is never the first step for me. The closest I've come to that is, oh, well, there's this idea that I could kind of turn sideways because that would be interesting. That's how I made the Red Dragon Bloodline Sorceress that has had 2 goes at things so far and is now in a peculiar but not resolved place in the kind of afterlife. I mean, she's dead, but dead doesn't mean done in this case. Her enemy is technically dead, too. He's just trying to ascend. So, anyway, but the idea I had with her, because the first go-round, she was a half-orc. I figured, well, you know what? In this, they get a +2 to anything. I'm going to take those 2 10s and put them in my physical stats. She has always had a 10 strength and a 10 con. Those are the worst stats she had. And yeah, you be this squishy caster of a half-orc. 'Cause, fuck it, why not? That's not what you expect when you look at or think half-orc. But, yeah. Squishy Caster started out as a half-orc, who turned out to also be half-elf, which also, you know, still pointy ears, less, in the gruff and whatnot. But that was an, okay, well, I actually have a take on a thing that I could do. It still took a while of gaming to figure out who she was. That's always the case for me. I never know when we start who they are. I figure that out as we go along. The other time I've had an idea while we were making characters, I tried out the, I ended up making a catfolk. Some people call them tabaxi. In actual 3.5, they were just written out as catfolk. I think even in Pathfinder, they're written out as just catfolk. I know tabaxi's a technical title for them, but Khajiit, you know, they're catfolk. I think Tabaxi is supposed to be a specific flavor of catfolk. I don't know. But either way, I had had an idea for a, well, I want to be a catfolk. Catfolk with their dexes and whatnot would make for good monks or rogues or both. I have technically made a catfolk twice, but in the first one I did actually get to gestalt those. But the one where I had an idea while we were at the table that I wanted to run with was oh, hey, there's this thing for doing multiple personalities. I kind of want to try that. So I ended up having, and they were different. The tricky part about it, and was a good exercise in role-playing because I had to argue with myself being both sides of it. The DM could have stepped in to help if necessary, but I did fine on my own, and nobody else at the table knew, so I had to talk to the DM in private and let them figure it out, including when one or the other was actually, or the third. There was a third. There were 3 different moons, and there were 3 different variants of monk. There were 3 different variants. One had a vow of poverty, the main one. The second one had the I cannot tell a lie vow, essentially. But not the vow of poverty. So that one kept picking up things, and when the main personality would come to, kept putting them back down, and other party members would scoop them up and just give them back later. And then the third one was that, I can't remember, the hungry spirit type, the I eat souls, that was an actual evil one. There was a good, neutral, and evil was the way I broke them down. Coming out during, well, not necessarily coming out during the different moons, but yeah. But having the idea for the, oh, this would be an interesting thing to try and role play was the concept for me. It wasn't, hey, yeah, a catfolk monk is nice, because they're inherent bonuses, and if the DM lets you add claw damage into your unarmed damage, that's also nice. That's not always the case. But the concept was well, this would make for an interesting roleplay opportunity. And it actually works in this setting and set of circumstances that we've got. So, hey, what do you think? Anyway, hi. All this talking and no kitty time. She wants attention. Yes, she does. Yes, she does. See, I was talking about catfolk, but not showing the kitty. What's with that? Yeah. Kitty time, kitty time. Yeah. I've been rambly. I'm sure I have. I probably need to edit this. I may not edit it, but I probably should. Huh. You got a loose tuft of fluff. You got a loose tuft of fluff. Let me get the loose tuft of fluff. No? Yeah, I'm facing the wrong way. You think I'm gonna pick you up. I'm not. I'm also not gonna scratch the side of the part of your face with the scab on it. You wanna let that heal. Huh. Huh. There we go. There's a kitty face. Alright, I, like Spoon, have rambled on for way longer than I probably intended to about creating a couple of characters and who they ended up being. I actually didn't really talk about who she ended up being, and that's okay, because it's very complicated. But that's more than enough for today. I will, I guess, try and trim this down some, and talk to you tomorrow.